Good morning, afternoon, evening, whatever it might be for you 40 Waters. Thanks for tuning in. This is episode 24. I haven't mentioned that in a while. At 24 episodes in, been doing this for getting close to 6 months now. I'm pretty excited. Things been going pretty decently. I appreciate all the feedback and support and all of the just the community that's starting to get built around this. I really appreciate it. It means a ton to me. Going to mention the couple things up front that we like to take care of. Remember to find us on social media, follow, like, whatever that social media's appropriate response is. Be sure to rate and review the podcast, or if you are watching on YouTube, please subscribe, bell icon, thumbs up, thumb down. I really actually don't care. Just interact some way. If you want to leave nasty comments, if you want to leave awesome comments, just leave a comment. For the algorithm, you can't see the air quotes, but you can hear it. Remember to go over to our Patreon page, patreon.com/40watt podcast, where for as little as $3 a month or as much as you want to give, you can help support the podcast. And I do donate 25% of proceeds from Patreon at the end of the year to charities. This year's charity is going to be St. Jude Children's Hospital. So go over there, make a donation, help make this podcast happen. My loftiest goal is just get to where I'm not operating at a deficit, and you also help support a really awesome charity at the same time. Without further ado, I'm going to get into today's episode, which is an episode that has been a long time coming, and we might mention we had actually scheduled to do this before, and then life happens, literally. So
literally life happens. Yeah, that's right.
Literally. So today's episode, I'm super pumped. We've got Joey Landreth of the Bros Landreth, also of Joey Landreth as a solo project. Joey, thanks for coming on the show.
Oh, Phillip, thanks for having me, man. It's such a pleasure, and thanks for your patience.
Oh, no, I totally understand. So I'm going to tell this really cool story. So for those of you that don't know, this is going to be a weird episode for me because I am an unabashed major Joey Landreth and Bros Landreth fan, have been for a while. I actually have a photo from a show at the Basement in Nashville, you and me, from I think it was 2019. And I drove 7 hours one way to get to that show. And
my God.
Yeah, 7 hours. It was totally worth it. Amazing show. But this is a chance for me to talk to someone I'm a huge fan of, and so I really appreciate that. Well, I've been a Patreon supporter of the Bros Landreth for a little while now, and we talking on the Discord, and I had happened to mention that I have a podcast, not trying to sell it, just had mentioned it, and Joey said, no, talk about it. It's like, so I talk about it, and Joey actually offered to come on the show, which is awesome. We scheduled a date, and about 7:30 that morning, I get a message that says, hey, dude, my wife just went into labor. I'm like, so later this afternoon, then, right? We're good. I totally understood.
Exactly.
So yeah, and so since then, you're a dad now. Like, you've been busy.
Yeah, I'm full on dad mode. It's crazy. It's a pretty big lifestyle shift that there's no way to prepare for, but it's pretty wonderful. And it was about 7:30 that morning. I was like, I don't think I'm gonna make it. But and now Joni, my daughter, is 11 weeks old today. Is she 11 weeks old or 10 weeks? I'll have to check the calendar. She's either 10 or 11 weeks old, one of those two. Yeah, and so I feel like I'm officially out of the early dad or early parent dustiness, as I've been calling it, and so here we are. We're doing the thing.
Yeah, you're a little out of the panic at every little thing phase. Like
yeah. What was that noise? Is the baby still alive? Oh, thank God, the baby's still alive. Yeah, there's we're pretty chill people, Anna and I, but there were moments like where I woke up from a dead sleep and was on my feet without even realizing it, running over to the bassinet to check on the baby, and then kind of waking up halfway in between the trip and just realizing that the baby had coughed,
Oh, wow, yeah.
And Anna was like, you sat up faster than I've ever seen anybody sit up and get up, and just like, yeah, it's pretty disorienting, pretty crazy, but anybody who has kids probably can understand.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, those early days are crazy.
I don't have kids, but I do have and it is still a totally different experience. But I have a little sister that is 11 years younger than me, so
Hmm.
I helped a lot with when she was a baby and when she was growing up. So I got a little bit of that experience without like the heart attacks that go along with it. Right, my mom got to
Of
have
course,
heart attacks.
of course.
Man, such a wild trip. So that's in the midst of obviously pandemic year, crazy, not going on the road. You've become a dad now. Um, it's how's that whole transition been for you? I know you've talked about it on your Saturdays karate in the garage with your brother on your YouTube
Mhm.
channel. Which guys we'll put a link to the Bros Landreth YouTube channel here in the podcast or
Thank you.
YouTube links. Um, so yeah, you've talked about that a lot. You actually started karate in the garage because you were so just y'all needed that outlet.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. It's been a challenge. I mean, I've been on the road pretty much nonstop since I was about 16. And I started touring in a band in high school on weekends. And I pretty much, I mean, I haven't been on the road 200 days a year every single year since that age, but it's been pretty nonstop. And so, we finished our last tour date at the end of November of 2019. We got home with a month before Dave's son was born, who was born January 3rd of 2020. And we had a whole year of shows planned. It was, mind you, a mild year just because of the baby, and we didn't want to be, we wanted Dave to be able to be around. And then, I think we played a show in February, and then that was it for 2020. I mean, everybody's got that. Every touring act, pardon me, has that story. But it was like to kind of go from an album cycle year at the end. And for me, like 2018 and 2019 were probably the busiest years of my career. I had two records come out, and I did, two full swings for Hindsight through
Yeah.
Europe and North America, and then took a 30-second break and then started touring for 87. And so it was massive. It's super fun, but obviously that comes with its consequences as well, just sort of energy wise. And then to have things kind of slam to a screeching halt was pretty disorienting.
Yeah.
Um, but I can say, like, I've always kind of identified as a traveling guy, and this is something Dave and I have talked about on our sort of live stream. Is we have always identified as these sort of traveling people, and being forced to slow down because of this pandemic has really kind of shown us a side of life that I think we to be honest, we're just missing out on, because you put all your eggs in that basket, and you start to believe that that's the only way that you can keep the business going. And we discovered pretty quickly things like Patreon, believe it or not, a little bit of income even from streaming. All of this stuff has managed to keep us floating. The generosity of lots of people certainly as well. But so it was kind of like, oh man, so we don't actually have to tour our lives away in order to stay, floating. And now, that said, like, we're both pretty good at living off of nothing. So it's not like we're paying six-figure salaries or something that we have to kind of upkeep. I can live off of very little. So all that to say, it was a bit of a perspective that I don't think we would have ever gotten if it wasn't for um, this sort of COVID experience. And it's sort of shaped, I think, how we're going to move forward in terms of touring, and how hard we hit the road. And yeah, it's been a valuable market test. We'll say that.
Yeah, I think that's going to be a common trend amongst a lot of touring acts that realize I don't have to be on the road 200 days a year, which, however you look at it, or maybe I can change the way I structure that. I think I've heard you talk about, I'm pretty sure it was you, 3 weeks at a time is about how long you want to go at most before you come back, at least home for a moment, you know? It's okay
Yeah.
to get on the road. I take that back. That was not you. I think that was actually Rhett Shull who said that. Take so. He said that in one of his videos. But In the meantime, though, you guys, it isn't like the band is the only thing you guys are doing. You guys have started a record label that's doing
Mm-hmm.
well. You had a bunch of your artists nominated for I'm gonna get the name of the award show, but it was like Western Canadian or
Yep, Western Canadian Music Awards, the WCMAs. Yeah,
nailed it.
you nailed it.
So, but yeah, so talk about that move to start a record label and do that on top of it.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's kind of been something that we dreamed about from the early days. You know, my brother and I are both kind of business minded in a sense. You know, I mean, more Dave than me, but we're both pretty entrepreneurial guys, and we've both managed to navigate starting our own businesses and all that. And in the early days, it was like, you know, when we were shopping around for um, release partners, there was a lot of pushback in what we were doing, and it was, you know, on one hand pretty discouraging, and on the other hand it was pretty evident that it was like, well, people are coming to our shows and people are buying our records, so the consumers get it, but the industry doesn't get it, you know. And at the time that we released Let It Lie, um, uh, you know, the sort of lo-fi like almost grungy folk Americana thing was really big, and Let It Lie did not sound like that. It was, you know, it was a lot cleaner. You know, and I mean, I think like we grew up listening to a lot of music from the 70s, you know, so it's like a lot of Steely Dan influence. So that those like, not that our record sounds like a Steely Dan record, that would be impossible. But you know, those were kind of our influences and in the sounds that we were going for, and the industry just didn't get it, and there was a lot of pushback. So we kind of thought like one day it would be cool to just be able to be masters of our own domain. And then
Yeah.
in 2014, we partnered with a Nashville-based label called Slate Creek Records under the direction of Garth Fundis, who is a Nashville um, legend. We produced so many records, and it was the founder of the Sound Emporium recording studio, and just a wonderful, wonderful man. He's kind of our he and Jim um, Burnett, the owner of that label, kind of became our uh, fairy uncles, fairy god uncles, and they spoiled us, and they treated us like gold, and they were the first label to kind of say, we don't want you to change anything. If anything, we want you guys to dig your heels further into this sound. Um, and that kind of ruined us for record labels, because when we started shopping around after, you know, after that sort of relationship ended, we learned pretty quickly that, oh, that's not the norm. The norm is the pushback, is the, you know, is this the direction you want to be headed in, and how do we, what are we going to call this, and how do we sell it, and you know, let's just get you in a room with some top 40 writers and stuff like that. And so I released one record with another label, and then when it came time to negotiate for Hindsight, um, my manager Stu said, you know, I want to take a risk and I want to try releasing it ourselves. Worst case scenario, I think we can do as well as we did with Whiskey. Best case scenario, it grows a little bit, but instead of sharing the profit, we keep it all. Um, and so that album was a bit of an experiment. We started talking to a record label in Europe, a big name record label in Europe, and the deal was really good. But we were just like, I just think we can do this. You know, we're smart guys. We can figure it out. We've got a good team of people for the stuff we don't know how to do. So let's just take a spin at doing it ourselves. And that was kind of the beginning um, of our label. And so Dave and Stu, our manager, they had started a little production company and publishing company, kind of for the same the publishing company was the sort of same thing. We just kind of couldn't really find the right partner. So they started doing that, and they called it Birthday Cake Media. And in the process of sort of developing all the relationships for the publishing company, we had kind of accidentally put in place all the pieces and infrastructure for label. And so that's when Stu said, like, not only are we going to release this ourselves, but we're going to start our own label. And so the first handful of records were Hindsight, um, 87, Roman Clark's first EP, Waiting for Mine, and our pal Begonia, her record Fear, and we released those, and it just the thing has just sort of grown. And full disclosure, like Dave and Stu are the main sort of creative forces behind that. We've got a really great team of folks. I kind of come on board as the sort of resident audiophile, creative sort of consultant. So I listen to mixes, I listen to um, test pressings for vinyl. I listen to songs and stuff like that, and that's kind of my main role, is sort of consulting with the artists and trying to help connect them with either other artists to collaborate with, or gear companies if people are looking for a guitar or a pedal or an amp and they don't quite have the money to go to the store and get it themselves. I can kind of help introduce them and have facilitate some partnerships. So it's man, it's really fun. It's super fun, and it feels really good, because the whole the mission statement of the label is we won't sign someone to a record deal that Dave and I wouldn't sign. So we're not going to be asking for the moon and stars unless we're willing to offer the moon and stars. We'll
Right.
go, okay, we'll partner with you on this 50-50, but we're going to go to the wall for this record. And if you're not comfortable with 50-50, then we'll do 1585, or we'll do 2080, and we'll sort of negotiate the label services that you need, because maybe you don't need the whole thing. You just need somebody to help you manage the distribution or whatever. So it feels really good to do something that's a little more, not a little more, considerably more artist driven, because I think that's like, and this is something we've hammered on and on and on about on our show too, but I think that's the thing about this this new age of the music industry, which I think challenges a lot of people with streaming and how little streaming pays. But the thing that it does do is it levels the playing field. It means that in order to release your music, you don't have to go through some label who's gonna try and convince you to make something different than what you want to make. Because if the label goes, I don't get this, I don't know what to call it, you go, okay, I'll release it myself.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
in the early days of the Brothers Landreth, Steve Bell, who we had on our show, he said to me, because I was really worried, because the record was mellow, and everybody that I told that I was making a record with my brother, they were like, "Oh, I can't wait to hear it. It's gonna be Guitarmageddon." And I mean, there's moments of guitarness, but that's not what drove the record, and I was really worried. I was worried that people weren't going to get it. And Steve said to me, that doesn't matter. Like, if this is the sound that you guys make and you can't stop making it, don't try not to make it. That's ridiculous. All you have to do is make a sound that makes you feel good, and then the only piece that you have to figure out is finding the people who like that sound. And if you like that sound, then there's guaranteed other people who like that sound. And he was right. Um, and that's what I think things like streaming platforms have done for the industry, is they have given the control back to the artist.
Absolutely.
And I think I would sacrifice record sales. And I mean, when people say, "Oh, it must really hurt business," like, I've never lived in a music industry where we made thousands and thousands of dollars off of album sales, so it didn't hurt me at all. I can understand, like, somebody who makes a gajillion bucks off of record sales. Yeah, that must have been pretty devastating. But that's not my story. I've
Yeah.
never gotten that check in the mailbox. So to me, it's like, yeah, I've never lived in that industry. So I think all in all, it's a really great thing. It's a really exciting thing, because I'm hearing music that fires me up in ways that I've never been excited about music before. And hearing people just just unabashedly create.
Yeah.
You know,
Just to create for
the
create's sake.
Jacob Colliers of the world, who, that, yeah, and that dude he's primed to be the next Quincy Jones. And if he'd have come onto the scene 10 years ago or 15 years ago, I don't know that there would have been a place for him. You know what I mean?
Oh,
So I think I think this is a really cool ass time. It's kind of the Wild West. There's a lot of growing to happen. There's a lot more development. I do think that streaming platforms should offer significantly more money, because if you provide more opportunities for artists, then you're just, you're just supporting the community and creating more opportunity for more creation. Um, but that I do believe that will come.
And I think it goes back to sort of what you talked about earlier. When you guys got off the road and you suddenly had to get into, you found Patreon, you found YouTube, a little bit of monetization there. I think that's the thing that's got to shift in people's minds a little bit when it comes to streaming, is that yes, it's not paying, and it should, but it's not. And a lot of that is because of the way I won't get into it. I'll get into a weird like copyright law class I took, feels like 100 years ago. But it's the way those old school record deals were structured, that the category that streaming ended up falling under for all the different avenues of distribution ended up falling into the category that the record label got the largest percentage of, because pre-streaming almost nothing was in that category. So artists would just give up a ton of percentage of that category. And so streaming service gets most of the money. Record label for those kinds of artists gets the majority of the rest of it. That's why some of the major artists avoided streaming for so long. And like the little artists were popping up on there. And then, of course, I feel like they got taken advantage of. But this is not a Spotify rant. I actually agree with you. I think it has given control back to the artist to be who they want to be. And get away from that where's the single mentality of record labels.
Yeah.
But there's some growing to do, but you have to find other avenues to do it.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of one of my sort of rants, is this idea that an artist cannot also be the CEO of their business and understand what they're doing. And there's a bit of an old idea that, and I mean, I get subjected to this all the time. Like when people are like, "Oh, you're an early riser, but you're a musician." Like, yeah, I'm a musician, but like I run a successful business, and I mean, I got a kid. Like, I'm 34 years old. I can't sleep until 2 o'clock in the afternoon anymore. And these sort of like stereotypes that follow us around also feed our own egos, or they also feed our own concepts of ourselves. And so a lot of artists don't think that they can take control of those things. And so there's this like, well, if I'm not making money off of only album sales, then how else can I do it? Well, there's so many different streams of income. And that's the thing, honestly, that's actually the thing that makes the music industry actually a pretty stable way to earn a living, is that you can put in place, like for me, obviously like I do a particular thing, but I teach lessons. I make very good money teaching guitar lessons. I sell pedals. I make very good money selling guitar pedals. I don't make enough off of teaching to keep me alive. I don't make enough off of pedals to keep me alive. I tour. I make decent money off of touring. I sell records. I make a little bit of money off of that. Brand partnerships, not a ton of money comes in from that. But if you add it all together, it's a livable income. And that's the kind of stuff that you have to do. You have to be, I mean, I feel like I'm a broken record, but you have to be able to manage multiple streams of income. It's just, it's the only way to do it. But I mean, if you put all your eggs in one basket, if you put them all in that album sale basket, yeah, you're gonna find yourself up that creek without a paddle.
Yeah, absolutely. And that, I think that's it. I think artists, I went to MTSU right outside of Nashville. I've talked about it on the podcast, for recording industry management. And that was in the early 2000s. And it was funny that we would talk about, that was right in the heyday of like Napster and recording association, recording industry artists association suing like 12-year-olds for downloading, whatever MP3s they were downloading. And it was funny to watch that at that time. And I had this mentality, and I remember telling professors that the national artist, the like big time national artist, is going to die. I said that's gonna start to fall away. And
yeah,
it's one of those few times in my life I can ever say I made a prediction that happened. Like, it's my one and only. Trust me for stock advice. Don't listen to me for lottery numbers. But I got this one. I said you're going to see a rise of smaller regional artists, and they're going to find audiences. They're going to find audiences. They're going to make money touring. They're going to be able to control their own music, and it's going to happen. I thought it was MP3s that were going to do it. I didn't know about streaming. I had no way to predict what streaming was going to do.
Yeah. 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 Oh man, it's funny. I was literally talking about that with Anna like 2 days ago. And we were talking about like this idea of the superstar. And I said, I think John Mayer is the last like non-pop star superstar, at least for our generation. And maybe we'll see that shift down the road, but I don't think we'll see another guitar slinger selling out stadiums. I just don't see it. Big rooms, yeah. Making a great living, yeah. Even being wealthy, yes, I think that's possible. But I just don't think we're going to see a superstar like him again in our generation for that reason. And I don't think it's a bad thing. I mean, when I was a kid, I definitely dreamed of playing on those big old stages. But like, man, there is nothing better than playing in a room with 200 to 500 people. That to me is like the most magic feeling. And I'd rather play 3 shows in a row to 500 people than one show to 1,500 people, or even more. Like there's something about that intimate setting that's so special. And I mean, I like in the early days of my side person career, I did get the opportunity to play big rooms, like not like football stadiums in the States, but we played hockey, like big hockey rinks in Canada, and I got the chance to play those big stages, and it was fun, but there was that intimacy when like you can look at somebody and hear them say something and interact with your audience, and like that to me is very, very special, and I miss that. The odd time when we get to play a big stage or a big crowd, I miss that connection quite significantly. So
Yeah.
yeah,
I had a conversation on through Facebook comments, not like in person, but with an artist out of Oxford, Mississippi named Shannon McNally.
Mhm.
And she got to talking to, you would dig her, by the way. Her music is incredible.
Cool.
Very, very roots Americana. But she was talking about these kinds of big shows, and not that I've ever had an opportunity to play like a massive show. I've played some, couple of thousand. That's like the biggest I've ever played. Like I opened for BB King a couple of times. Feels like a million years ago, but
That's cool.
um, yeah, super cool experience. But like that was great, and that was a festival setting, and festivals aren't terrible either. It's not the 30,000 people in Madison Square Garden or whatever it holds, but
Hmm.
I prefer to play to smaller rooms on with my level. I'm just a guy playing mostly cover bands or side gig or whatever, but I
Sure.
also prefer to be in the audience in those small rooms.
Yeah.
My
Yeah.
wife
Yeah.
and I went a few years ago, went to see Red Hot Chili Peppers at the FedEx Forum in Memphis, and it was a great show. Sounded awesome. I've been a Chili Peppers fan for a long, long time, but at the same time, it's this giant stadium. It's so
Mhm.
impersonal. It to me, it didn't feel any more personal than watching them on YouTube through a great sound system.
Yeah.
You
I've been very fortunate to see some cool shows just by virtue of playing cool festivals and stuff. And one of the things we got to do is we got to play the Cayamo Cruise, which is like all your favorite roots Americana artists on a cruise ship. It was amazing. And the year that we were on it, oh God, how can I forget his name? Tennessee Whiskey.
oh, Chris,
Um, Chris Stapleton. Chris Stapleton was playing it, and I got to see him in a multitude of spaces. The big auditorium on the boat, but I got to see him in smaller rooms, and he even came out to see us play one time, which was really cool. And then about 6 months later, my wife and I, Anna and I, were living in Toronto, and we had gone to see him at the Molson Amphitheater, which is one of the big outdoor venues in Toronto. And our seats were way at the back, and the band sounded incredible, but and it started to rain, and it was just not enjoyable. And I sit down and I was like, wait, is it crazy, but do you want to get out of here? Because honestly, this band is so good, and the show that we're seeing now is the same as the record. I'd rather go home and listen to the record at home,
yeah,
because with those guys, what you see is what you get, and it's like the performance that they played on the recording of Traveler, I guess,
Yeah.
That's them playing live. So that's the show. Let's go home where it's not cold and wet, and there isn't some drunk asshole ruining my experience, like talking my ear off. Let's just go home. And that's kind of how I feel about the big rooms too. It's like it's there's something cool about it. Like I got to see Clapton in a big space, like in the big hockey rink here in town, and I got to see John Mayer at that same spot. In 2007, I caught his guitar pick. That
Oh,
was
nice.
cool. Yeah, I still have it somewhere too. Um, but yeah, some of my most favorite experiences ever are just those small spaces. Um, nothing beats it. Nothing beats it. You just feel like you're a part of you're a part of something when you're doing that.
When uh, for example, the basement. I saw y'all at the basement. I've seen some other shows at the basement. What a cool, like, small intimate venue. Because you really the audience is more so a part of the show, and they should be. I
Yeah,
think Steve talked about that on when he was on your Karate in the Garage. He talked about how
yeah,
the audience is part of the performance, and they
yeah.
should be. I went and saw so when I was living in Hattiesburg, Mississippi, down south a couple of years ago, my wife and I went to see Gillian Welch and Dave Rawlings play.
Oh yeah,
Oh, it was one of the most transcendental performances I've ever seen. They played entirely acoustic. Um, and they were so acoustic that they had no monitoring on stage.
mm,
There was no in-ears, no wedges. They just listened to each other play acoustically live. And to the point
cool.
that at one point, Gillian Welch, in the most, like, polite way ever I've ever seen, politely asked the person who was taking photos at the event if he would stop after the second song. She said, "Because I can hear the click of the shutter."
Yeah,
Now,
yeah,
so wild to me. So yeah, it was very intimate, very low key. I've never been so captivated by two voices and two acoustic instruments in my entire life.
yeah.
I would
Well, I
lose it in
mean,
a big house.
those two are so special.
Yeah.
Um, they're so special. But there's something like I think we get lost in the spectacle sometimes. And the thing that I've just sort of been like meditating on or ruminating on these past 2 years, especially in the absence of live music, is how, like, as much as it's like, man, when I go see a guitar player, I want to see you rip. I want to hear your fuzz pedals. But the main thing that you're going for is to watch humanity unfold. And like the thing to me that I believe very very strongly, that is like the key characteristic of humanity is our creativity, and not just artistically but in everything. And so to go and watch someone create, I think is one of the most, I'm not a super spiritual person, but I think it's one of the most holy things that you can partake in. And uh, I think sometimes we get wrapped up in the spectacle and we forget that. And there are moments like, man, um, I saw the Queens of the Stone Age, and again at the big hockey rink in town, and that was an example to me of a big show that really captured that human creativity, the lighting, and the audio, like the whole experience was driven, to me, was designed to push you further into the songs and the compositions and all that stuff. I thought that was really cool. But sometimes I feel like we miss that mark a little bit. And those moments, like the acoustic Dave Rawlings and Gillian Welch, is like, or like I got to see Buddy Miller and Ry Cooder one year at the Americana Awards in Nashville, and that was like that. It was just like unadulterated, the just the meaning of music. Those two people doing it together, and Ry's son Joaquin was playing drums. Don was playing bass. It was
Oh,
so crazy. Oh yeah, it was great. But
no,
I don't
that's
know,
such
that fires me up. That fires me up so much. And I want to see you make mistakes. I want to see you laugh at the drummer who drops a stick. I want to see that stuff. I don't need a perfect polished performance. I don't need you to sing in tune all night. I don't need you not to break a string or have your guitar go out of tune or step on the wrong pedal. I love that. And those are the things that I have the most fun with in my show. If I forget a lyric, like to me, that's like, oh, this is not a mistake. This is an opportunity to share my humanity with people.
Yeah.
And I love that. I love, like, I don't know. I feel like the great performers are really good at making moments out of that. The like, um, Lyle Lovett and John Hyatt and Rat Cooter, all those guys, they just make these beautiful moments. Anyway, I could yammer on and on, but I've made my point.
No, I got really lucky this past week. I got to play a few gigs, a couple of surprise gigs. I was playing guitar for a couple of different bands, and then my own like blues cover band that I'm just now putting back together. Played our first show since like 2019.
Oh, nice. That must have felt amazing.
It did. We were way too loud, we were way too fast, and we had way too much fun. But so, you know what I
Hell
mean? It
yeah.
was things. Playing local bars. We played this local bar, and a typical horror story. They've got like a flight of stairs that's barely the width of a door that you have to carry all your gear up and down, the whole 9 yards.
Yeah.
But like we're getting into or playing, and like you're saying, it's like you make mistakes, and it's fine because that's what it is. Like I remember, and thank you, Adam, who's a buddy of mine who caught this moment on film, so it's forever immortalized on YouTube.
Yeah.
You're going for a lick, and you start a half step too low. It's like because you're just in it, and you're not paying attention to where you are on the fretboard, and all of a sudden, and so you start out a lick half step too low, and you're like, that sounds awful. You just laugh. That's all you can do. Move on. I've gotten over apologizing for mistakes musically on stage because it's part of it. It's just happening.
It is. It's totally part of it. And I think if you get too wrapped up in the perfection, you miss it.
You want me to show?
Yeah, sure. This is a rare sighting of the baby, of the girls. This is
Hi,
Joni.
y'all.
For the people listening to the podcast at home, Phillip says, hi, y'all.
Hello.
He's in the South. It's pretty cool.
Very
Because
cool.
Anna and Joni, they can't hear you because I got headphones in, but
I gotcha.
yeah.
Well, for listeners that can't see Anna and maybe the most adorable baby ever, Joni, on screen on YouTube, you can check it out on YouTube.
I agree. Yeah, check it out on YouTube. You can see the whole fam family.
That's amazing. That is so cool. So I do have some targeted questions for you.
Let's do it.
But first, I did have one. Oh, I've got to tell you a story because you'll appreciate it. Not everyone gets to appreciate this story, but I know that you like Lyle Lovett. You cover one of my favorite Lyle Lovett songs of all time, If I Had a Boat, which is, anyway, neither here nor there. Lyle Lovett opened for me once, and I love telling that story.
Yeah.
So what happened is I used to be the assistant manager at a blues club called Ground Zero Blues Club in Clarksdale, Mississippi. It was co-owned by Morgan Freeman. So I got really lucky. I told the story on my last episode with Emily Harris, how Robert Plant once bought me a beer and sat and talked music with me for 40 minutes. That would have been a great podcast too. But or like I met Willie Nelson in that bar. I've met a ton of cool people working there. So one of the other owners, not Morgan Freeman, was having his birthday party at the club, and they hired Lyle Lovett to come in and play this birthday party. And so we're talking like 125, I think, is the fire code in this place.
Right.
It's a small place. If you remember when the Flaming Lips did their world record where they played like 12 shows in 24 hours or something like that. I don't remember. They broke the world record for most gigs in a day. They had Gary Clark opening for them at Ground Zero. I was there for that show too. It's just cool experiences. Neither here nor there.
Yeah.
I'm gonna really off topic. But Lyle Lovett was hired to play this birthday party, but he was going to stop at like 10 o'clock. Right. And they didn't want the party to stop. So they hired this other band that I played guitar for to play after Lyle Lovett had finished and gotten off stage. So yeah, I get to at least say that Lyle Lovett once opened for me.
That's too cool. That's way too cool.
Yeah, no, it's a super cool story. So questions, I've got a couple, and they're going to be really interesting. One from the Timber Owls. We're gonna ask. He says wants to know general favorite gear, which is I think is way too broad a question. So let's say your favorite piece of gear you've gotten since you got off the road for the pandemic. You've got to have gotten a good handful of stuff by now.
Oh yeah, I'm always picking stuff up. Um, favorite piece of gear. You know, I got a set of Ron Ellis pickups and I put them in my Duesenberg baritone, and that's probably the most profound change that I've ever sort of experienced with modifying an instrument, putting those pickups. As I love that guitar, that Duesenberg baritone, and the pickups sound great in it. Um, but I have a set of Ron Ellis's PAFs. Just turn that thing into uh, such an exciting thing to play. And I put a set of his pickups in my Gold Top as well. And so the Ron Ellis pickups, those are probably my favorite thing. Pedals are coming and going for me all the time, and
Yeah.
I rarely I rarely receive something that I don't like. But I'm such a creature of habit that my main thing is like a fuzz face, some kind of blues breaker, and then right now, for the last handful of years, is the Chase Bliss delay pedals. I just love they just are so fun to play, and so everything that I get, everything that I've bought or been sent or whatever in the last year and a half has been super fun and exciting, but um, nothing has chased those guys off my pedal board yet. I just got
Yeah.
a bunch of I picked up a stack of Jam pedals, the company in Greece. I picked up their Univibe, which is really really fantastic, a chorus pedal, and their take, I think, on a Dynacomp, which is, I mean, I almost always have a compressor on my pedal board and I almost never turn it on. And I think I might actually use the Dynacomp, like, because it's just kind of, sorry, it's not a Dynacomp. It's called the Dinosaur, but spelled like Dynassor. It's pretty funny. Which also like appeals to my inner dad joke, like Dynacomp, dinosaur. That's funny. I like that. Yeah, and I think those guys make really, 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 really great stuff. Oh, the other thing that's been a real standout is the R2R electronics stuff. On Instagram, the guy's name is DJ Lava Lamp, and he makes like treble boosters and wah pedals. And he makes this. It started off as like just a cocked wah pedal. So there's a pod on it that you can just set and forget. But then he sort of just designed a treadle that you can connect as an expression pedal, but it's uh, I'm lucky I got a couple cool vintage wah pedals that sound incredible but break down constantly. And this thing, it sounds as close to my vintage wahs as I've ever heard so far. So
That's
uh,
all.
Chris Vincent is his name, and so he makes that stuff. So that stuff fired me up as well. Um, and I've been working on the prototype of T-Rock, so that's really
Oh,
exciting too.
that
Yeah,
is really exciting.
yeah.
I
I'm
I
not sure. I'm not.
Oh, I was going to say that the cocked wah sound. It's funny that you mentioned that somebody's doing that. I remember in like the early 2000s, I gutted a crybaby wah, and I took this old like I don't know Marshall valve state like foot switch, right? Like and I didn't own a valve state. I don't know where this foot switch came into my possession, but it did, and I gutted the foot
Yeah,
switch and put the guts of the crybaby in there, and instead of a treadle, I just put the potentiometer where I could turn it and just
uh,
turn it on and turn it wherever I wanted it. I was like, that's all I want. I just want to be able to
that's
get that.
cool. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. That's super cool. That's super cool. I'm such a sucker. Like, I mean, my music does not often want a wah pedal, but I always have one on my pedal board, even if I just step on it once every other show. It's a sound that I love so much. I'm such a big fan. Like Doyle Bramhall's wah sound is like, to me, the holy grail. I'm constantly chasing after that sound. Uh, I mean, I think it has everything to do with him. And because I've seen him play the exotic wah, I've seen him play vintage king wahs, I've seen him play vintage Vox wahs, and it always manages to sound the same. So I'm sure it has more to do with him than the pedals, but I still, it does stop me from buying every single pedal that I've ever seen him use. But
I'm a wah
yeah,
pedal.
I'm a sucker for that sound. What's
Yeah,
that?
I'm a wah pedal junkie. I love wah. I will always have one. I think it's just the blues player at heart in me. I have to have one, and I will step
Yeah.
out on at completely inappropriate times.
Hell
Um,
yeah.
so I'll put another one on your radar then too. Wilson Effects by Kevin Wilson. First of
Okay.
all, he makes some of the coolest pedals in the game. I think his Univibe, the Haze or the Uber Haze, which is a Univibe with a tone control, um, it's one of the coolest Univibes out there. But he makes a wah called the Wilson Wah V2, and it's got dip
Okay.
switches inside of it, so you can like revoice it to however you want. I took a
Mm.
day, couple of hours, and went through every voicing, found the one I loved, and I've never touched it again. I'm like, that's it, that's my setting. But
Okay, the Wilson Wah V2.
yeah, I highly recommend
Dang.
that one.
You just
Um,
cost me some money, I know it.
well, that's all right. Hopefully, just tell Kevin Wilson I sent you. Um,
Okay.
he actually shared video. I had some video of my gig recently using the wah, and he shared it on Instagram. I sure appreciate that, Kevin. So let's see. Apparently Siri thinks I'm talking to her.
Oh,
All
I
right,
love that.
yeah, random. Couple of more. Well, I've got two more for you. First, well, I'm gonna skip one that someone asked your favorite tuning. Y'all, it's Open C. It's Open C.
OpenSea, yeah.
Yeah. Um, favorite classical composer, and by classical he just means like music that music departments would program. Cage, Mozart, any. Do you have a favorite like non-popular composer?
Uh, well, I don't know about non-popular, but I'm a really big fan of Olivier Messiaen,
Okay.
who is a mid-century French composer that I got really into a couple years ago. And his music, he's often recognized as a bit of an atonal composer. So, in other words, um, unless you're a super nerd, might be kind of hard to listen to. But there's some of the most exciting and beautiful pieces of music. One is called O Sacrum Convivium, which was a choral piece, a four-part choral piece that I tore apart with a friend of mine named Jake, Jake Weens, who's a super music nerd and a guy that I've sort of spent a lot of time studying music sort of with. Um, and so yeah, I'm a really big fan of that of him and Debussy. I love Debussy. Again, I don't know that he's not, super popular. Like in terms of classical composition, he's pretty well
Yeah.
known. But I harmonically, I love um, the way he composes Stravinsky, Bach, of course, J.S. Bach, like Father Bach, the first one. Um, I mean, hard to say that I'm influenced, but I've learned a lot from listening to his music, particularly uh, the what are they called? I have the
The
book
chorales.
somewhere here. The Bach chorales. Yeah. The 371 chorales. I mean, I've learned a lot just like literally doing the dishes, listening to those like um, dynamics and I don't know. Compositionally, they're just
Yeah,
perfect.
harmonic composition's insane.
Um, oh, it's nuts. I mean, to me, there's nothing better. There's nobody better. Yeah, Strauss.
Yeah. I'm a
Yeah.
Stravinsky
I,
fan myself as well because personally, string quartet's always been my favorite um, classical medium for
mm,
composer, and so I thought he was really like upper tier, like top three string quartet composers for me.
yeah. Yeah, some very exciting music, and also really interesting because he like his sort of like composition style was actually pretty heavily influenced by bebop, like in certain aspects. So you just like you hear some of these like modern, what I would consider American folk music finding its way into this into this like traditional European music setting, which I think is so interesting because so much of music kind of tends to go the other way, where it's like trying to force European music ideas into folk music, and Stravinsky kind of goes the other way. I mean, a lot of people borrow from jazz. I mean, that's not an uncommon thing, but particularly in that setting, I think is really like if you listen to the Firebird, whatever the Firebird suites or whatever it's called, there's tons of like very very like sort of modern jazz sounding harmony in that I keep wanting to say recording. This is not really how classical music works,
No.
but you know what yeah, in that
Well,
composition. So
I think part of that is like his influence of the influence of American jazz coming into Russia during that time, and it got
yeah,
him in hot water. He got in a lot of trouble for that. It's one of the reasons he later moved to France and then later America, because
yeah,
the
right,
Russian government did not like him adding all these Western ideas into his music.
right, yeah, right. Yeah, crazy. That would have been a crazy time to be a Russian composer, because there was a
Yeah.
lot of pressure on those guys to create like propaganda, like musical propaganda, and support and promote like Russian excellence. Like there's a lot of crazy stories about Shostakovich too. Like
Yeah.
anyway, yeah.
No, that's a fun
And
musical.
I'm a big fan of Shostakovich as well. I think maybe am I mixing up my composers now? I'm pretty sure Shostakovich, the Russian, the guy who made that he wrote that crazy fugue. Of course, I can't remember what it's called.
Yeah, I can't remember either. It's been longer than I want to talk about since I studied some of this stuff. So only like the handful of things have stuck with me, like the Stravinsky stuff and
Yeah,
like how influenced they were. Because I think Blake Weiland brought this up on another podcast I was listening to. But I remember studying this in when we got into. I was a music major in college, so when we studied this period of music history, we talked about how jazz got into Russia because they didn't allow American records into Russia. What they
right.
did is they started using old X-rays to cut records into old X-rays, and they called them bone records. And so you can still find these records that if you hold them to the light, you like see a rib cage or a femur in them because they're old X-rays. But they would cut jazz records into them so they could smuggle them into the country.
No way. Oh,
It's
that
real.
is fascinating. I love
Yeah, and
that.
like they had X number of plays before they were gone forever. Like you could listen to this record like 5, 10 times and it's gone forever because
Yeah, right. Yeah,
not
right.
strong.
Yeah, such
And
a soft material would deteriorate. Yeah.
oh, it's crazy. All right, so one more question because I know we're running a little late. I know you've got a deadline. So
It's all
um
good. It's all good.
this is gonna be a tough one though. So I want you to be really introspective about this one. Um
Okay.
uh Timber Owls wants to know what's your favorite Nicolas Cage film?
I knew it was gonna be them. It was like it's either got to be something goofy or like germanium or silicone.
Oh
Uh,
god.
my favorite Nicolas Cage movie, Con Air.
Oh,
Con Air.
great.
And that's just because I remember watching that movie with my grandparents, and it was like at a time before I knew that Nicolas Cage movies.
Uh-oh. I think I lost you there.
Yeah.
There you go.
Hello. There we go. Sorry, I had a call come in. Um,
You're good.
I was at an age, and that was at a time before I knew that all like objectively Nicolas Cage movies were bad, and it was just like that, and like man, actually, we watched a lot of Nick Cage movies. Face Off.
Yeah.
Um, what was the Alcatraz one? Is it just Alcatraz? Yeah,
Yeah. Maybe that sounds right.
yeah,
I,
yeah,
I
yeah, yeah,
all of them.
yeah.
Uh,
I watched those three with my grandparents. I have some very fond memories of hearing my grandpa laugh at the ridiculous ways that Nick Cage kills people, and yeah.
the
But yeah,
the
Con Air for sure.
my
I
my
can't, I can't listen to Leanne Rhymes without thinking of Nicolas Cage.
my favorite and least favorite part about Con Air was that absolutely ridiculous Southern accent he tried to put on. that was just bad.
Yeah,
I hated that there are people somewhere in the world who actually think that's what Southerners sound like. And
man,
so,
yeah, I totally get that. I think probably you and I would share that because like I feel the same way anytime somebody tries to portray a Canadian, because it's like Canada is such a vast country, first of all, that the accents range so differently across the whole country. And so every time you hear somebody doing Canadian accents, like Orski Borski, what's that all about? Eh? Like there's definitely people that sound like that, but it's such and also when you hear people do it, they almost always do it so badly.
oh
So
yeah, of course.
but so you and I are kindred in that way. So screw you, Nick Cage. On behalf of misrepresented accents.
Yeah, I've got Canadian friends that I talk to fairly regularly, and all the way from St. John's to BC. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
people forget it's a giant country, y'all. There's a lot of different voices there, and
She
then
big.
north and south they
She
change.
big. Yeah. Yeah. There's a guy on TikTok, actually, a Canadian guy who has a channel where he does this thing where he plays a character from each province, and they're having they're having like a staff meeting, and every single and like this much like the South, like the subtleties are, if you're not from there, you're not necessarily going to hear the subtle differences, but this guy nails them so well, down to like in Manitoba, which is where I'm from, that's the province I'm from, where Winnipeg is. And there was this like massive fad of wearing white, like thick rimmed sunglasses, and I thought it was just universally cool, and that's one of the details that this guy gets, and it's like, oh my god, this guy travels. This guy's got to travel, because it's anyway. It's pretty perfect. Of course, I can't remember his name, so good luck trying to find him. But he's on TikTok.
I bet you could search on TikTok for Canadian accents, and you might find him.
You might
Or
find him. Yeah.
or Canadian staff meeting.
Yeah. Yeah. That's right. That's right. Yeah,
Well,
and Quebec's always angry because he doesn't want anybody making decisions for him. It's great.
I love it. I love it. I will have to go search it out. But I think we're gonna wrap things up because I really could talk for a long time, but I know that we all have things we need to get to. And but I really appreciate you making some time to come on the show today. And listeners, hope you've enjoyed it. Again, please leave some comments, rate, review, subscribe, bell icon, thumbs up, thumbs down if you want to, and go to our Patreon.
Don't thumbs down. Just don't do it. If you don't like it, just walk away. Don't thumbs down. That's like,
just scroll harder.
Don't be that guy. Don't be that guy. Nobody likes that guy.
Like except for Mick and Dan of that pedal show, who genuinely care about their one guy who always thumbs down the videos just before they even start. Have you heard them talk about that?
Yeah. Brothers Landreth have one of those too. Like every single video we post, there's always one dislike. I'm just like, I want to know who this person is who subscribes to our channel and every time a video comes up, is like, fuck these guys. I don't know if I can say the F word. I apologize. You can bleep it out later.
No,
but I want to know who that person is. Like, I'll find out it's my mom. She's just like, got to keep the boys honest. Who knows?
Can't get you getting too big ahead. You got to remember.
That's right. That's
not
right.
everyone likes you.
That's right. Mom loves you, but not everybody likes you. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, what is it? The BB King song? Nobody loves me but my mama, and she may be jiving too.
Yeah, right.
But anyway, so we're gonna wrap up. I sure appreciate y'all all listening. Joey, thank you so much for coming on the show. Hopefully we'll be able to do it again sometime soon. Hopefully I'll catch you live sometime soon-ish.
It's gonna happen, and I'll try to get a little closer to you than Nashville.
Yeah, actually now I'm where I am now is I'm in Starkville, so I'm about 4 hours from Nashville, so it's much closer now.
Nice.
I'm actually headed up for Summer NAMM in July, so assuming it's happening, it on paper it's happening.
Crazy. That's crazy.
Yeah,
well, yeah, congratulations. We're a few steps behind you guys in getting back to normal. We're actually in a lockdown right now, but I've had my vaccine. Anna's getting hers in a few days here, so we're slow but sure. We're getting there. So
it's awesome.
Fingers crossed the world can start getting back to usual.
Luckily, Mississippi here counted public librarians, which I'm a public library director, it's what I do for a living, counted us as education. So I was able to get vaccinated relatively early in the time frame. So
Oh,
I'm
nice.
very thankful to be vaccinated, and I need the rest of Mississippi to catch up, please. Please, please.
Oh man, yeah, it's tough, but we'll get there. We'll get there one way or another. But yeah, man,
Absolutely.
I hope we can connect in person again sometime soon, and this time now that we know each other, we'll have a little visit.
Perfect. That's awesome. Well, y'all, we're wrapping up here. Y'all, please have a great rest of your weekend. If you're catching this on Thursday or Friday, be sure to be good to yourselves, be kind to each other, and try to get to make some noise. Later.